Welcome back. I'm Isaac, and these are my experiments. This is actually part 2, so if you haven't seen part 1, you should probably stop here. Last time, we left off with a little bit of a dilemma. We didn't have enough words. So, I found a new file that had a bunch more words, but it was in the wrong format, so I quickly converted that and sorted it so that it's just like the other one. And if we just look at the two file sizes here, if we go to properties, we get 1.2 megabits, and our new one is 4.03 megabits, so almost 4 times the amount of words. Really, in the code, we didn't really add anything super crazy. We pretty much just added a couple methods down here to help us with inputting the new data. So we have a new one for combining the data, where I just take a list of all the directories, and then we just basically read everything from all the files and add it to the appropriate files. So now everything is ready to go. So we got NU, so we got numbers, tick. Point is, we now have plural words, which is how I originally noticed we didn't have very many words. Now that we have a sufficient amount of words, and I will still be continuing to look for more words to add, we can now actually start making the UI. Now for this, I have created a diagram. So this is the original idea that kind of popped into my head as I was thinking things through. Up here at the top, we have our time remaining, that's going to tick down. We have our score here in blue, and then we just have like this little interesting dial thing in the center that displays what character we're trying to do. Of course, the keyboard is going to be at the bottom. We got our text box in the middle here. And then I've kind of put some notes on here for as I make this. So one of the ideas I had was to make bonus points where you would have like a little speech bubble pop up on the side of the screen here. And if you come up with a word that contains OV in this case and an A, which oval is the word I came up with, then you actually get bonus points for having this A in there. And this could be AL, I mean, it could be all kinds of stuff. And we're going to generate a list of these based on the word. And then other thing I want to do is if you get stuck, I don't want people just to be stuck there forever and run out of time, because that's no fun. So around the edge here, we have kind of a dial where this will slowly kind of fill in, and when you get to the end, your time's up. So I don't know whether you lose time, you lose points, something, but at that point you get a new character combination. Now, one of the ideas that I had was that if you are able to come up with this word super fast and get it like in the green section here, then you could actually like enter a combo mode where you get the same letter combination and you try to basically come up with as many words with OV in it until you reach the end of the timer. And so each one would like multiply your score, so you get like oval, over, override. I can't think of any more off the top of my head, but you would basically try to keep putting as many in there as possible, and it would basically multiply your score and then add it here. I'm thinking about adding some really cool animations and stuff. One of the big things that I want to do is I'm going to have at least 2 modes. Casual mode, where you're going to have a lot more time. It's a lot less stressful. It's more just kind of casual, fun, not stressful. But I also want an insane mode, because I want to make the most stressful word game that you've ever played. So essentially, now that I have kind of a base idea, obviously the colors are just kind of what I kind of pulled out of my head. So feel free to leave me feedback on what you think would look better. I am thinking what could be cool is to add like skins to the game, so you can actually change like the entirety of how it looks. One of the other random things that I was thinking would be also cool to have is a way for you to like keep track of every word that you've ever used and just like track how big different people's vocabularies are. I think that could be really cool. So as an editor, the rest of this is pretty boring. So let's just go ahead and skip to present day. This is what we have. So I got rid of the brown because it sucks. I kind of like the blue. Let me know what you think. So let's go ahead and just show you what I got. As you can see, we get a word that shows up. So the first thing that comes to mind is bleach. And you can see the little dial on the side. Took a little bit to get figured out. I'll show you guys how that works in just a second. You can see that it kind of fills up. Once it gets towards the end, we get a little timer animation, and then we get a new word. So far, there's no penalty other than you just get a new word. Now, if we type in a word, obviously resets the word countdown timer, and we get points. So currently, we get points for 1 point for each character in the word. Still contemplating making it so that you get more points based on the rarity of the letters and whatnot, but that's besides the point. And so you got words. So now, as I've just demonstrated, if you get it really fast, you get the gold meter, and that allows you to have as many combinations as you can, and each one increases how many points that you get. And then, of course, you also get a little bit of time back. So the faster you get the word, you get a little bit of a time boost. And so it is actually possible to play this for quite a while. Now let's go ahead and let's just take a look at our script. Currently, it's all just kind of in one main script here. So this is kind of our main script. We don't have too much complicated stuff going on here. Most of it's relatively simple, but I just want to go ahead and show some of it. So up here, we just have all of our variables and things that we need. So all of the stuff for the UI, all of the stuff for our word data, and the update function. We basically just have it check to see if the game is over or not. If it's not over, then we want to update our timer. And then we are going to be checking to see if the player has pressed enter. When they do, that obviously submits the word. There's one little magic trick that makes this whole game work, because obviously you don't want to have to re-click the input box every single time that you enter a word. And so that's what these two lines of codes are doing here. It's basically just reselecting that field so that you can immediately start typing again. We then validate the combination. If it's true, then we go into here. We get this progress bar fill amount. What this is doing is it's basically just saying, hey, over here, if we're a certain amount of the percentage filled, then we're going to go ahead and go into combo mode. Else, we're just going to kind of keep going with normal mode. Then we have our fixed update. This is actually what's responsible for incrementing the time. As a lot of you may know, fixed update is going to happen at a fixed rate, and so that helps us to actually keep track of what the actual time is, as well as adjusting our progress bar. I've split everything out into a whole bunch of methods for calculating score, reading stats, all the different things that need to happen. That way we can reuse them. And so if we take a look here, this progress meter is actually really cool. If we go into our main canvas here, and so what we're doing, basically all we have to do is mess with the fill type of the image. So we have this radial 360 degrees. We start at the top and then we go clockwise. And so then adjusting this fill amount, you can see over here that it actually changes how full our progress meter is, and then basically once we get it all the way full, and so that's when we actually display the clock. So there's kind of a little bit of weirdness there. Now that we've kind of got all this, I'm going to go ahead and skip some of the fancy animation stuff for now, because I kind of want to focus on the gameplay first and then kind of spiff it up with some more animation. And so what I've started working on is generating the combinations or the bonus combinations. And so basically what I'm doing, and this is actually running right now. Oh, and this is broken. I keep accidentally pausing it. But what this is doing right now is generating a combinations. And so if we go ahead and just open this up, you can see these are our original combinations with how many times it appears in the English language. And then we do that for every single combination so that we can say, hey, 148,844 times the letter I appears with the letter E. And we can then pick from these words the same way we picked the floor and ceiling, and we can pick these combinations to be part of the bonus. So if you get the letter E, maybe we want something that's not super common. And so then we pick one of these combinations that go with that original combination to be our bonus. And then that way we can make sure that we always have a sufficient enough words that also contain that combination to make it possible, while also adding a fun extra flair to the game. But we have a problem. The original version of this code took 1 hour to generate 9 rows. That's a little bit too long, considering the fact that we have 6,484 rows, meaning it would take about 720 hours to finish computing all of this. So I started working on stuff, and that's when I was like, hey, actually, I probably should record this process. If we kind of go in here, I'm going to go ahead and stop this run because it doesn't need to keep running. The first thing I did, originally, I was reading in all of the word lists every single time. And so instead, what I did is I added this up here, and basically I load every word into memory first because I have quite a lot of RAM. That's not a big issue. And based on my initial calculations, this was going to save about 15 minutes out of an entire hour that it would have taken to get to the same spot. But obviously 15 minutes per hour doesn't really add up to much when you're talking about hundreds of hours of crunching numbers. And so I think the next thing I want to do is actually multi-threaded. And we're back. Multi-threaded and all. This is actually a little bit more difficult than I thought it would be, but it's working now. It might not be the best way to go about doing it, but it works. Basically, we're doing all the things we did previously, and the new stuff pretty much starts here, where we create a task factory. We choose how many threads we want. Oh, that's why things were blowing up last time. I meant to change this back to 6. Basically, we can choose how many threads that we want to run. And so obviously if you run too many threads, they all slow down. So it kind of defeats the purpose of multi-threading. But I found 6 in previous testing seemed to be about where an acceptable level of use was for my computer. We create an array of tasks, and then we basically, for each thread that we want to spin up, what I have here is when we get to the last one, instead of doing our calculation where we're taking the total number of combinations divided by our thread count, we just get the total number of combinations minus the index, which is the position in the array that we're at. That way we get whatever the remainder happens to be. And then of course we increment the index by the amount of combinations that we used. We create a task and store in this array. We do start new, and then this generate bonus data. Once we come back, we're going to use this to wait until all the tasks are done. And then basically for every string s in things.result, which is basically each one of these is storing a string result. We're going to add that to the output line. We add all of our data to the output line, and then we just print the output. We will go ahead and start the program for our final time, hopefully. We will now go ahead and start crunching the numbers for our final data set, which we're going to go down to the depth of 1500. Using 6 threads, I found to be relatively decent, although you can see if I open Task Manager here, it is currently using 75% of my CPU processing power. I might be able to do more than 6 threads, but I'd also like to be able to use my computer for other things while this is running. Now, previously, we'd calculated that this will take about 20 hours to fully calculate with the current data set, but that's with a single thread. So now that we have 6, we should hopefully be able to cut that down, which is going to be around like 3 hours or so. And we're back 112 minutes later, which is like half as long as we were expecting this to take. It has all been generated. So as you can see, we obviously have all of our standard combinations on the side here in the order at which they appear. And then of course we have the combinations in combinations that appear afterwards. So I appears the most times with E, followed by R, followed by A, followed by N, which generally tend to follow the same pattern as our original distribution, which you would expect, but the places where it actually differentiates, I actually find kind of interesting. And so then the idea is with the bonus system, we can pick something from somewhere in the middle, and so we can try to get a word with an OU and an E in it, which Europe, I think. Yeah, Europe would fit. And so obviously the further along this axis we go, the harder it gets, because there's going to be less words that contain all of these characters. Now that we have all of the data for our bonus words, we now need to create the little speech bubble that I want to contain the extra bonus characters. We're upgrading from Microsoft Paint. I've used it for a lot of things, but I think it's time to start using something that has a little bit more features. We'll see how it goes. If we go back to our script real quick, we got to add a couple more things. For layout sake, what we'll want to do is, like, when we're in the editor here, I'm just going to keep this to show up. But then, like, as soon as we start the game, we're going to make it disappear. That way, when we're kind of messing around with the layout of things, we can kind of get the layout correct and then mess around with where everything else will be. That way, if we add, like, other bonus things or other meters, we don't accidentally add it on top. So to do that, what we're going to do is in our start method here, we're going to disable those. Can't type. All right, so now we need to actually do the code to get this all linked in to actually do the bonus. So I think the best way to do this is to just give us a randoms chance for start to actually use the bonus system. So we can go here and get new combo. This is where we get a new combination. And so this is where we can mess around with how likely it is that we get a bonus. So for starters, we can make it like 100%, and then we can tweak it to like 50% and go on from there. I think the best way to do this is we'll do the bonus after generating the combo, and we already have a random number generator. So I think the fastest way to do this is to say int b is equal to rnd next, and then we want to limit this between, we'll do 1 and 100 for now. And so what we're going to do is this should be a relatively even distribution of numbers from 1 to 100, and then to select how often we want the bonus to happen, we can just say something like if b is greater than 60, then we'll do the bonus. And so that what this does is, roughly, if it's above 60, that gives us a 40% chance approximately that the bonus will show up. We probably don't want it that often, and the main thing, we'll just make it 50%. That way, as we're playing the game and testing, we can just see that this is working properly. So actually, let's give us a variable up here. That way we can tweak it without modifying the code. 50, and I think there's some weird Unity thing where I can actually set this to be a range, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. So now that we have a reference to where that file is, we need to actually read in all of the data. So I think the best way to do this is we're going to create a string, or no, let's create a list of strings. So will be bonus data equals new list of strings. Then we'll do file dot read all lines, because each bonus data line is a combination along with its distribution of, and then we will read this from the bonus data file. What we'll do is we will find that bonus in our data if it exists. If it doesn't, then we're not going to do the bonus, and we'll just skip it, because obviously we didn't run through every single possible one, because that was going to take way too long. Then what we'll do is each one of these are separated by a comma, so we know that if we start at the first one is G, if we go 2 over, that'll be the I, and so we can split this up into the combo datas. We're going to steal some code, and we're just going to grab this because we just want to read each line individually. And then, if so, let me think about this for a second. Yeah, okay, so what this is going to do is we're going to start at 0, because obviously we want to start at the beginning of the string. We're going to get the index of the comma, and then we're going to read up to that point, and then we'll just say, hey, if we find it, then data equals line. All right, so now we'll have all of our data. Next thing we want to do is kind of parse this out into a list of combo data. So let's create a list. So now we got to parse it out. So we'll say what we're going to do is we're going to create a for loop. And then while I is less than raw stats.count, we're going to say I plus equals 2, which will let us increment the for loop by 2 instead of 1 like we might normally do. And so then what we're going to do is we're going to say stats.add new combo stat, and then we're going to say raw stats. Yeah, so the first one's the combo, second one's count. So this is actually going to be I minus 1. And then this, and we're starting at 0. Wait a second. Oh, wait, yeah, no. So the first one would be just I. Second one would be I plus 1. Yeah, because we'd start at 0. This would go to 1. The next time we go around would be 2. It'd start at 2, go to 3. Yeah, okay. So, yeah. And so that way we can loop through all the raw stats, and we can get them into this combo stat form, which is a lot easier to work with. Now, the next thing we're going to do is pretty much exactly like what we're doing up here. All right, so for each of our bonus stats, we're going to go through the loop and basically check to see if we're within our ceiling. All right, so now we should now be displaying that bonus combination on the thing. So now every time we grab this, every time we get a new combination, we'll have a random chance to display our combo and go through the whole ordeal of filtering it out. So it took me a little bit there, but I kept running into this weird issue where it would just kind of like randomly blow up for no reason. And I realized because we don't have the full set of data and we're paring it down a second time when we look for it in the ceiling, there might not be any combinations left in order to actually display one. So the first thing we need to do is we don't want to enable the bonus right away because we might not be enabling it. And then we need to kind of guard this off a little bit. We've already done all of our stuff with the normal combination here. If data is still equal to nothing, then we don't need to do anything. So we're just going to return. And then once we get to the bottom, once we do get our letters, we can set the text and enable it at the bottom. So I've been sitting here trying to figure out why things are not working the way they should. And this is the problem right here. Never copy and paste code, even though we're all going to do it anyways. This should have been bonus data, not the word data. All right, with those changes made, let's see if this will work. Oh, I'm an idiot. All right. So first we have to split it out, obviously. So raw stats needs to be equal to data.split by commas. Now this should work. This needs to be raw stats. So this was correct, but I forgot to split it out. So now if we restart this, we'll just clear this. Hopefully it'll work. All right, so we'll do tomb. We'll wait till after the golden bar. Okay. So fast contains that letter. Okay. Okay, this is looking like it's working. So kit. So it didn't show up here, but this could be out. So kiss runs. Well, wait, we don't want to actually to get combos right now because we want to get to the next word faster. So it's looking like it might be working more or less. So this is brilliant. This is like definitely adds a layer of complexity trying to get this one. So lemons, this one, fast would get the bonus there. We need to, I'm trying to like, so obviously this bonus word contains the letter that it also has in it, or like, so we also get well, obviously, because it contains it. So we probably should filter these again to eliminate ones that also contain themselves, because that doesn't really quite make sense. So let's see. So we're creating these new combo stats from the raw stats. Here we're adjusting the floor. So here we want to say if combo dot contains C dot combo. So basically if C contains it, we don't want to do anything, so we'll invert that and say if it doesn't contain the combo, then we're going to add it. This way we filter out anything that already contains that original combination, because obviously that kind of screws us up a little bit in terms of, I mean, it doesn't really mess it up, but I feel like it's way too easy. It's cheaty. It doesn't get the gist. So there we go. So turn. I think this is working properly. We can go ahead and get rid of our debug statements. Those I've been just using to try to figure out, because there's obviously a few things wrong with this code. So we can go ahead and get rid of that now. But I'd say the difficulty is definitely like increase there with the bonus. Now, obviously, because that's going to take you more time when you get those bonus words. So I'm trying to decide, like, when you get the bonus words, we need to, like, the reward for getting those bonuses needs to be higher than getting a combo. Because if you get the combo mode, I'm realizing this game has a lot of combo in it. We need to, like, come up with some better terms so that there's not so much of the same word. But we obviously need to do some fine-tuning with the floor and ceiling. Obviously, using the same ones for the main game, we probably want to come up with a separate floor and ceiling for that so that we can kind of adjust things. Although maybe it's not too bad. We need to come up with what's the actual bonus of getting the little bonus word there. Because obviously we have combo mode, which makes it so that you can get multiple of that same combination letters in there. You get multiplicative points every time you do. We need that reward. We need it to be worth it to wait a little bit longer to try to come up with that bonus word. So I'm going to have a think about that. I think that's where we're going to leave it off for today. And I will see you in part 3, which will
hopefully come out sooner than part 2 from part 1. So with that, have a good one. And thanks for watching.